At One Hustle at a Time, we are a different channel because we bring in experts from across the real estate and mortgage markets. We have the boys from Convoy Home Loans, Dustin, and soon to be Jonathan. How you doing, Dustin?
Good. How are you?
All right, man. So I think we need to talk about the market, lending restrictions, commercial banks. Obviously, this week we got a light reading on CPI. We got a light reading on PPI. We had jobless claims this week come in hotter than expected. All in all, I think the Fed is at their terminal rate, which I think is going to mean that mortgage rates slowly march towards 6% and ultimately below 6% in the coming months. What do you think of all that? What do you think about rates and inflation? What do you got going on?
Yeah, I think what was it 4.9, right? Beat expectations, which was nice, but by point 0.1, so nothing crazy. But I do think this gives the market some hope as to their predictions of next meeting being a pause, and then I think in July it's like at 50% right now that they're betting it's going to be a cut, right? And ultimately, mortgage rates are going to follow if you just follow the Fed futures, right? If that percentage in July turns to 60%, for a cut or 70%, we'll see rates slowly come down. If we see it turn to 30, we'll see slowly rates go up. But I think we're at a good point in the market. Keep in mind, with a grain of salt, for the average rate and where the rates are at, just to see some normal, rates that people can expect to see, that this is normal now. Like that's the bottom line, is the more that we can play on kind of a and here's Jonathan, um, even playing field, if you will, where it's not just a ping pong game of rates. It's going to make everybody's job, not just first time home buyers, but mortgage brokers and
Yeah.
investors, job a lot easier.
Yeah, what I've often thought, guys, is we had to get to the terminal rate, which I think we're at now. We had to see the economy slowing down. We had to see inflation coming down, which it is. And then we can see the gap, which I think was 313 basis points, the spread between the 10-year and mortgage rates. That's not normal, right? Historically speaking, it's 1.7 to 1.8. Net today it's 3, right? 3.1. When do we think that might start coming in? Do you think that kind of slowly collapses over the next couple of months, or am I crazy?
I think it has to.
Yeah.
Like I said, there's no way rates can stay this elevated, right? And I mean, we say elevated from a perspective of the current market, but overall wise, I mean, when they talk about, oh, rates used to be, 12, 13, 15%, prices were also very cheap
Yeah,
back then, right?
exactly.
So, but even then, rates came back down, right? There was a time where those rates were up there, and then it came down to where we are right now and where we were last year. So, I think we ride it out a little bit in the range that we're at, but I think eventually it has to climb down and the spread has to get smaller.
Yeah. If I were going to give you the over under, or I'll say it this way, I believe the 30-year mortgage rate, right? One quoted by Mortgage Business Daily or whatever it's called, Mortgage Daily. I think it will be under 6% by the end of August. How does that feel? Does that feel crazy? Or do you think it might be possible? Too soon? What do you think?
No, I don't think that's too soon. I think the average 30-year fix right now, when I checked this morning before walking into this, was at like 6.29, right?
Oh,
And that's just
wow. 6.2. Yeah.
yeah. So I think it's, like I said earlier, it's going to be a snail race down to get to below 6. But I do think that's very, possible. I'd probably put it at maybe a 65% chance it's below 6 in August.
Yeah. What do you think, Jonathan?
No, I would have to agree, but I do obviously I'm always the one giving disclaimers, right?
Yeah.
Don't go out there thinking that just because the rate came below 6 that now you got to refi everything. It's probably not the best time for you to refi, even if it did come down a bit. So because I know that we get calls every single time when Yahoo Finance or Bloomberg or
Yeah.
someone says rates are down.
Yeah.
Do I have to refi? Like, can I change my rate? All that. I obviously, even if it comes down like a 0.25%, 0.5%, it's not really worth the trouble of refinancing or paying all those extra closing costs again. And the payment difference in reality is not that much. It's like maybe 50, maybe $100. So that's something to keep in mind. Even if the rates, like you hear the world going, oh, rates are coming down, really just sit down with, you know, someone like us or whoever you use and really figure out, is it actually worth it for you guys to bring it down? Because the last 2 years was about getting the asset, securing the asset,
Correct.
right?
Correct.
And so now that you've secured the asset, the important part is, even if the rate come down, is it actually worth it for you to make a move, or is it not? Right. In a lot of cases, if you've done something in the last 2 years, even if it's like 8% or 7.5%, you know, on a non-QM side, it's not going to be really, I don't think, beneficial, even if the rates do come down, which, you know, obviously potentially might come down, but we never know. No one knows.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it
well,
could
that's
go
why you
up.
got to work. You got to work with professionals like yourself. Reach out to them, see what makes sense. Do the math. But what really is, I'm going to say, concerning. I can't think of a better word for me. Is I think we know with evidence that rates going sub 6 initiates demand, and we're operating in a world where there's not a lot of supply. We're already exiting the spring selling season, so the supply never showed up. So we could be getting into August, which is traditionally a slower month, but rates sub 6 in a world where maybe unemployment's 4.2. So most people have jobs, and we're going to see a crazy amount of demand. And most of the demand's at the entry level. I fear bidding wars and offer review dates and all that nuttiness comes back. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, we're already seeing it. You
Oh,
know, like it's been a good month and a half where, like we said earlier, the average consumer, first time home buyer realizes this is where rates are at, right? And even though, you know, especially in LA or most parts of the country, you know, the biggest problem is supply, right? Increasing demand when there's no increase in supply. Now all of a sudden, the property you could have gotten 3, 4 months ago, let's just say at 650 with a rate of 7%, now is going for 725 at a rate of 6.5. That first time home buyer is actually paying more now, right? Because of
exactly.
the influx of competition and bidding wars. So
Yeah.
it's a big problem we have in the housing market.
Yeah. So a report that you guys probably look at every quarter. I very rarely look at it, but I looked at it this week. Came out on Monday. The senior loan, what was it? Officer's opinion survey, the SLOOS, crazy acronym. Basically, it's saying regional banks are, and banks in general, tighter credit. But I was actually surprised to see demand is down as well. You guys probably look at this report a lot more often than I do. What did you see in it? What were kind of the takeaways for you?
I mean, in terms of the report itself, the demand across the country is averaged down, right?
Yeah,
So
is that
we
odd? I thought
we
that was
see it.
odd.
I mean, we've seen it because people, I mean, the affordability is down. I think that's what it is, right? It's not actually demand that's down. It's actually more, I think, affordability of people to be able to buy is down. Especially with the banks. If you think about it, their credit tightening is next level, right? They're next level conservative now. We talked about it in last week's video, right? And in terms of our side, I mean, even if on the conventional side, I mean, DU, LP, like, you know, desktop underwriting, loan prospect for Fannie and Freddie, those are getting tighter too.
Wow.
So now I think that falsely creates a decrease in demand. I think the
Sure.
demand there, right? People want to do things, but how many people can actually do things is really the measure that they can't put on paper, right? Because there's no way to measure that, right? Everyone wants to do something. Demand is measured by the actual people that can actually apply and actually move forward on something, right?
Okay.
The applications filled out, but a lot of these files are being thrown out before the applications are even filled out, right? Which means that
Wow.
demand is down. Loan to value, debt to income ratio, down payments, you know, all that. Like, who can put in LA? You want to buy a shack for $1 million, right? You even 10%, it's 100 grand. So how many people can really put 100 grand to buy a shack and be competitive to buy that shack because everyone else is offering 20% down, 30% down, or even cash, right? So it's how do you compete against that in that type of market? And I think that creates a false decrease in demand, even though the demand is there,
Yeah.
just because of the lack of supply and the lack of people that actually qualify than they did before.
Yeah, and then the biggest takeaway for me on that survey was they're forecasting getting tighter all year. I
Mhm.
was like, oh my goodness, I mean, you guys probably remember this. Remember when we only could do 4 loans for investors? That was kind of the tightest I've ever seen. I hope we don't get back to that. But yeah, again, the lenders telling us um, we're going to get tighter all year was not a warm, fuzzy feeling.
Yeah. And I mean, tighter all year, I think I think it's very market based, right? It's
Sure.
individual. The biggest thing is going to be what is available, like you said, for investors. But the demand, I think, is going to continue to be there because people still have money, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we haven't really seen the full blown effect of what actual lower prices would do to a market, just because we lived it for a short period of time. But in that short period of time, rates were up. So it was kind of like an offset itself. So I'm curious to see what will happen once prices actually correct a little more into a realistic sense where it actually starts making sense for, rates plus the actual payment of the house. And then, at that point, we'll see where the demand stays. But, I don't know. I don't know if that's necessarily like we got to take everything with a grain of salt, right? Even everything we say. So when they say demand is down, again, like I said, I think it's a false demand
Right.
because, we're not seeing that. We're seeing demand up, actually, the other end.
Yeah.
So I think it's very isolated. The people that write those reports, they might not be as active in the market. I don't know.
They're
Who
not
knows?
active. Come on. They're not
Who
active.
knows, right? They're just probably looking at pieces of paper, going like,
Yeah.
"Oh, okay, demand looks like it's down." It's not the actual people that are in the ditches, digging
Sure.
and being like, "Oh, demand's actually up." People just aren't qualifying. It's just
Yeah.
hard.
Yeah.
That's what it is.
Yeah. Well, you guys are helping out One Rental at a Time fans every day, every week. If somebody wanted to reach out, see about a refi or purchase what they qualify for, how should they do that?
Go to convoyhomeloans.com and let us know that you came from ORAT.
Thank you, buddy. I appreciate it,
Thank you.
guys.